backtracking, right? So
Yeah.
now this is like 2015 and you want to suddenly become a software developer, right? You want to get into the tech industry, right?
Yeah.
You have no idea about how to code, so you start
at
from
all.
scratch. You've applied to like coding boot camps, right? You get into
right.
App Academy, you learn for 3 months, then you become an instructor there, then you become director of product, right?
Yeah.
What I'm seeing here is across your life, there's a pattern of learning, right? And you've broken down as well pretty well in the hard things about like learning hard things, right? But let's say you've broken down and you've said that there's art and science to learning, right? If the learning is structured, it's science, and if it's unstructured, it's art. And life is often unstructured, right?
That's right.
Can you break down the art of learning for us?
So, as you mentioned, there's two domains that you have to treat very differently. There's structured learning and unstructured learning. Structured learning is in domains that there's already a very well-developed curriculum of how you learn this thing. So if you want to learn calculus, you don't learn calculus by like, going and exploring and meeting people and whatever and like, joining meetup groups, right? That's not how you learn calculus. You just go, there's a textbook, there's a whole system, and if you do that system, you will learn calculus, right? There are many things for which this is true. And, when I first got into crypto was very unstructured. There was no curriculum, there were no textbooks, there were no classes. That's not true anymore, right? It's 8 years later. There is a lot of material that actually is very structured that you can go through to learn the fundamentals of crypto. And it's important to understand the difference between those two. If you're going into a structured domain where there is already this very robust curriculum, do not waste your time doing any other bullshit. The answer is sit down, study every single day, go through the material, actually do it by hand. Don't just watch things and think you learn things, because that's bullshit. That's not how learning works. Learning happens through doing and through active recall and through, there's a sort of hierarchy of learning. The first thing is, there's this saying I think in paramedicine, which is the way you teach somebody how to do something is see one, do one, teach one. Which is you see someone tying a tourniquet. First you see it, then you do it yourself, and then you teach someone else how to do it, right? And it comports with this hierarchy of learning, which is that if you just see something, that's a very, very poor form of learning. It's very low retention. If you read something, okay, maybe that's a little bit higher or something. If you talk about something, okay, that's higher. If you recall something and you like say it yourself, like you recall the whole thing, that's even higher. And if you teach something, that's like the highest, okay? So generally speaking, what I advocate is that you want to be climbing up this hierarchy and having more multimodal ways of interacting with learning when you're doing something like that's structured. Now, if you're unstructured learning, right, and this is like, okay, how do you learn, what's going on with AI agents?
Right.
Okay, that's totally new. People just came up with this bullshit like 2 years ago, right?
Right.
So there's no classes, there's no textbooks, there's no anything. There's just like a bunch of papers, talks, meetup groups, just things happening on Twitter. And so, okay, how do you learn this? Well, there's a few things that you have to do in order to learn something that's unstructured. So one, you kind of have to create a curriculum for yourself, right? And that curriculum is not going to be like, okay, well, here's the quizzes, here's the answer key, here's the key learnings, right? You kind of have to figure out, okay, what is the grand tour of material that I'm going to come up with? Two, you need to immerse yourself. You need to immerse yourself completely, which is just put yourself into this domain and ingest it, just swim in it. It's like you move to a new country. Like the best way to learn the language is not to like, do Pimsleur classes and listen to audiobooks. The best way is just to go out and be around people, and your brain is a sponge. When you have to learn something, not when you want to learn something, but when you have to learn something, your brain is very, very, very good at learning it. But when you want to learn something, your brain kind of sucks. Your brain's lazy. Your brain doesn't. Your brain expends a lot of calories. It doesn't want to do things unless it has to. So if you know that, look, I need to learn how to run as fast as I can because I'm in a dangerous place, your body will learn how to run, right? But if you go to a treadmill, you're like, oh, I want to run. It'd be nice if I could maybe do a marathon someday. Yeah, okay. You're never going to run a marathon if that's your attitude.
Right.
So that kind of immersion is fundamental, and it has to be, again, multimodal, right? So you want to be reading everything that you can. You want to listen to things that you can. You want to watch talks that you can. You want to go to meetups. You want to surround yourself with people. You want to talk to them, force them to talk to you. For a lot of these things, like, okay, well, I don't know anything about AI agents. Why is anyone going to talk to me? And to me, it's a little bit like, when I was a poker player and I was just coming up in poker, I didn't know anything about poker. I was just some random fucking kid. Why did anyone want to talk to me about poker? But the way that, back in those days, again, before they had the textbooks and all the structured content that today, much, much more robust than when I started playing poker, the thing you have to do is just force people to listen to you. just, you know, I was the most annoying kid when I was a poker player.
Ask the third question.
Yeah, exactly. Ask the third question. It was that I would not shut up until I understood. And I would, you know, a lot of people would be like, man, this Haseeb kid is so fucking annoying. Like, I just can't stand him.
Yeah.
And those people, you know, fine. But the people who put up with me, they're the people who I learned from. They're the people who tested my ideas and helped me to really develop a strong foundation. And the same thing in crypto, right? When I came into crypto, I didn't know anything. I started from the same place everyone else started. But by finding people who I could bounce ideas off of and really just, you know, people who knew more than me. And once you know more than the people around you, that's a sign that, okay, it's time to challenge yourself again and find a new set of people who know more than you. Once you're the smartest person in the room, that means that you're in the wrong room. And it's time to go revisit where you think you're supposed to be with respect to what your goals are.
Right. Thanks for that. It was like reading the blog, but like in person, right?
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that.